Well, hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, helping the brave host. Let's bring in our guest today, Jeff. I'm going to go Michael. How do you say your last name?
Hopf.
Hopf. I was going to say Hopf, but I wasn't sure for a fact there. I mean, how do you say my last name?
Parcaut. Is that what you said? I think did I get that right?
Parcaut.
Parcaut. Sorry.
Now, when I got in the Navy, I was Parcaut. This is not a joke. I was in San Diego. I was stationed at Camp Pendleton at the hospital. I started doing some modeling and acting, and I didn't, everybody's like, you got to change your name. I'm like, I don't want to change my name. I'll just go with the French pronunciation of it. And so I went with that throughout my whole life. That was like and so when I was at the hospital and they would go, oh, that's no, that's not HM1 Parcaut. That's not HM1. They gave me so much crap because they changed my name from Parcaut to Parcaut. And, after a couple of years, it was over. But, so that's my story and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, so you were at Pendleton.
Yeah, I was at the original hospital, not the current hospital.
You like the one on Main Side?
Yeah, that was in the middle. Yeah. I used to ride my bike in the morning, 13 miles to the hospital, got dressed and did what I did, physical therapy. And then I would ride my bike out the front gate on the way home. And that's how I got my mileage in for, doing triathlon and stuff. Yeah. So I know what you are, what your background is, but I only ask one question, the same on every show. What service did you join and why?
I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I really just wanted to see the world. That was really the main crux behind it. I was just tired of my life. I was actually tired of school. Could have gone on to college, and I looked at the Marine Corps as, the ability to kind of the gateway for adventure in a lot of ways, kind of be part of an expeditionary force. And that's really the primary reason I joined.
And where were you at? Where were you located when you joined?
I did everything back east because I grew up back east, Parris Island, and then, the MOS schools.
Where were you living at the time?
Oh, I grew up in Maryland.
Okay.
And left there, grew up on a farm, really nice childhood, great parents. I can't complain about any of my childhood. And then went to Parris Island, South Carolina. What's that?
Except for the farm work.
Yeah. Oh, actually it was, and when I say farm, it was like a non-working farm. It was like a former tobacco farm.
Okay.
Because it's like Southern Maryland. It's like it's known for its tobacco apparently. And it was an old tobacco farm my grandfather had purchased, many, many moons ago. And then we kind of, we lived on kind of a section of it. We carved out 9 acres for ourselves out of it. And almost like a commune, because I was here, and then uncles are over here and some cousins over here. So my grandfather's whole kind of vision was to have all the family living on this 100-some acres. Compound. And we just had like gardens and like some chickens and things here and there, but it wasn't like a real working farm because we didn't like grow any tobacco.
Yeah. See, my grandparents had a dairy. So after my dad died of hairy cell leukemia when I was 12, I started going out there on weekends, and then all summer I working out there, and I realized that's not what I wanted to do, because that was some hard work, milking cows twice a day, feeding them, moving sprinkler pipe at 115-degree weather at 2:00 in the afternoon in the fields. And, so I learned what I didn't want to do here in the Central Valley. And that's
why you actually like legitimately lived on a working farm. So I
didn't live on it. I lived in town. And I ride my bike out there. That's how I got into riding bikes, was because I wasn't old enough to drive yet. But I'd ride a bike out there, and that was, 8 miles one way. And, you get to a point where you start getting in good shape. And I had huge legs from riding bikes when I was younger. And I still do though. But anyway, that's beside the point. I don't ride like I used to because it's so unsafe these days on the road.
Yeah, I knew a guy, one of my neighbors, an older gentleman, one day just went out and never came back. It was just, riding, he's got hit. Someone not paying attention on their phone just ran him over. Actually, I got a question for you. Like, how young were you when you were working for your grandfather?
My dad died when I was 12, hairy cell leukemia. So I started right after that. So I was 12, 13 years old working out there.
Yeah,
hauling hay, learned how to do every type of welding. I can fix anything and build anything because of the fact that you didn't go into town to do stuff or fix it. You did it on the farm. You learned how to do it there.
Yeah, good skills. Actually, I learned a lot of skills too. Just growing up in the country, things hunting from, again, just practically just making to do stuff. We weren't poor, but we were like middle class. But yeah, we would just have to fix and tinker. I tinker with a lot of stuff too. I think those are really, really valuable skills. My grandfather, had a furniture store and a couple of them. So I actually went to work for him really young too. And really good work ethic, I think I got. And something I really try to instill in my daughters is the importance of work. It's not nearly for, it's not, as you probably would agree, it's not for the, not for the money. Although the money is kind of a nice byproduct of when you're working when you're young. You're just getting the experience of working, getting out there, understanding the schedules and who you're being accountable, and all these things are really good for teenagers, I think, to work. I think it's more so than just the money. There's a lot of like life skills and habits that they're developing at such a young age.
Yeah. So for a lot of our kids, or there were different ages, and they didn't all work. And I thought it was a detrimental for them not to work. We were like, don't worry about it. Just, focus on your schoolwork and all this other stuff. And I think it's important to learn that skill while you're going to, and that's why I think that we were talking before we got started about the different generations. And I see the current generation going, I want to work. I want to do this other stuff, which the one before it didn't do that. And that was a detriment for the parents of our kids to not have them do that and do certain things. I'm not to say that my kids aren't smart and they're not doing the stuff they should be doing, but I think it would have been better for them to have a little job while they were going to school.
It just, again, I just look at my own life and what it instilled in me, and all of my siblings worked too. And when they were teens, a lot of them did work for my grandfathers because he had that, that opportunity for us. And he was really cool about it. It's like, come on down and work, and paid us cash. We paid us under the table, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I worked after school a lot, and then worked on the weekends consistently, Saturdays and Sundays. I actually enjoyed it. Like, I still enjoy working. There's something about creating and productivity that like really fills me. And I really like that. But I think there's, my oldest daughter's finally got her job, her first job. She was doing some stuff for some of my companies here and there, but now she's actually gotten a job for somebody else, and she's 17, and she really loves it. She got one of her very first paychecks. She goes, hey, jump on my account. This was actually this morning. Jump on my account and look. And there's like all this money in there. I said, look at you, money bags. Like, how you feel? She goes, oh my God, I love it. And I said, I told you you'd feel that way. I mean, again, they're putting in that effort, and then they see that one byproduct that comes from it. And it just feels her like she can't wait to go back and do some more work. So I think she works again. What is it? Thursday, she goes back to work.
She didn't go, what's FICA? What's...
By the way, that's another kind of, you try to explain to them what taxation is and withholding and all that. Then all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, I make this much an hour to this many hours. I'm only getting this. Welcome to the real world.
And what is this? What does this do? That is for this. And my middle daughter went from a liberal to a Republican in a second.
It's so true. They instantly become conservative the second they start making money. Like, what just happened here?
Why am I paying this to somebody else to not have to work?
Yeah. But we were saying before, I see it in my daughters and just interacting with their friends, and the Gen Z they're unique, I think. And they're definitely a contrast between them and millennials. I see it. It's a big contrast. And I just see my daughters, and it isn't just how my wife and I kind of, our belief systems kind of went into them, because kids around this age really start kind of developing their own values and beliefs anyway. In some of it, they want to be polar opposite than their parents. But our kids are just naturally, or like just based on their experiences because of COVID, like you and I were talking about, become just kind of very conservative in their viewpoints, very cynical of government because of what government did to them when the government locked them down. And the parents weren't involved in that. We did what we could to try to make sure they could get out and go back to school. We even took our kids out of the public school system and put them into private just so they could go back. But, just that really shifted a lot of them, and they have a different opinion on government and centralized government and all the power that they have, because they were the unfortunate beneficiaries of that. I mean, it really set a lot of children back, and people can try to spin it any way they want, but it set a lot of kids back. They lost graduations. They lost, just a lot of interaction, education, just in general. And I think it has really shaped this generation to become what I think, you mentioned it, kind of the next greatest generation.
Yeah, I don't think people understand the difference between the generations. I only know about it because I was on one of my other, Inner Edison podcasts, and a guy was talking about the different generations, and it was part of the whole statement. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. And I thought about, wow, yeah, the greatest generation. Then you had my parents, and then you had myself, which was Gen X's, and then,
Mhm.
because what do we have? Boomers, Gen X's, and then you have all the what's the next
Millennials.
millennials, Gen Z's,
Yeah.
and keeps going. But we all look at things differently. Because I remember when we got our job, we were like, "Thank you so much for a job," and then you have these people in between that who are like, "You want me to work for what?" And and now you have the ones who are like, "I got a paycheck. I'm so happy. I got money," and it's a totally different way of looking at it. And I think that's just how cycles go, and we're in that cycle again, and that's going to make a huge difference for our country and a bunch of different things. And I also see that most people will want to actually go in and see people now and make sure they're talking to an actual person and not AI. The way that the voices can be kind of changed and everything else, and that people are using different AI answering services and everything else. You're going to get to a point where they want to walk big ticket items like what I do, mortgages, buying houses, those kind of things. I still people will want to go in and actually sit down in front of people again.
Yeah, the AI, that's a whole nother, I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole. That'd be fun to do. I love talking about AI, and I have my viewpoints on where that direction that's going. But you want to talk about because I'm looking at doing
This is your podcast. This is about
so
you. This is your transition. We didn't talk about your transition because from what were you a bodyguard, a diver? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I did a bunch of different stuff. Like after 6 years in Marine Corps, I cycled out, and then, but I just wanted to. I was kind of done after 6 years, and for a variety of reasons. I was a sergeant E5. Next ranks are like staff NCOs, and so they typically, if you want to stay in, you kind of have to go. Now you got to jump on this career path, and you have to go to like a B billet. Whether that's drill field or kind of recruiting. Neither one that I really wanted to do. I kind of gotten out of the Marine Corps what I wanted: 6 years, 3 deployments, all these things, great adventure, some uncomfortable experiences, but overall a great experience. I can't talk badly about it, Alice, because I just don't like to focus on the bad shit anyway. But so I went and became a commercial diver for a couple of years, and what was cool, and I think my transition worked out successfully overall, was because I went from the military, and a couple months later, I'm sitting in a classroom for commercial diving school in Houston. And guess who's there? A bunch of veterans, a bunch of guys who served Navy, Army, Marines, and we all speak the same language. We all get each other.
Right.
And so I'm still kind of with with the brotherhood. I'm there. And then, of course, when I get into the actual industry and I'm out on the oil rigs and Gulf of Mexico, dive boats, guess what? Same thing. All the senior divers are former military. And I mean, so I'm just still hanging with my people, and kind of with the tribe. And then I transitioned out of commercial diving to go to bodyguard work and do that for over a decade. And guess who populates that? It's just military people.
Did you
And
say
again,
body art?
Bodyguard.
Bodyguard. Okay, I was going to say
Yeah. So
bodyguard.
executive protect.
Bodyguard.
Yeah. So executive protection agent. I did that bodyguard work. And again, it's populated by former military. And again, so I think I had this benefit. It wasn't planned that way to have a successful transition from the military. It's just I was able to integrate back into the civilian and the mindset, specifically coming from the infantry, which in itself is its own weird environment, a little bit different than, say, their standard kind of Marine Corps unit. The infantry is just another animal, I think. And I was just constantly surrounded by the people that spoke my language. So I was able to kind of slowly just get back into it and just kind of, I did very, very well, I think. And then once I was, I guess, firmly integrated back into society, I decided to become an entrepreneur, and that led into writing books. And then now in several companies, and I still write, and that's kind of where I'm at today.
And what companies do you own?
I own 2 publishing companies, and another is like a foreign language translation company that I started late last year using AI. 2 of my companies really lean in on AI a lot.
Which companies are those?
Free Reign Publishing, and then Interlingual Media. And Interlingual Media is essentially taking books and then doing just foreign language translations with them, and then bringing in kind of a native speaker to do the editing, versus when you would do foreign language translations of a book, you would actually find a native speaker, and they would actually sit down with the manuscript and then literally do the translation. which is very labor intensive and can be, it just costs a lot of money. So now these large language models that are out there can do translations really quickly. But they're not perfect yet. Will they be one day? Yes, 100%. They're just learning. The speed of how these large language models are learning is incredible. But that's where we bring in kind of the native speaker that can then just edit it versus doing the entire translation. And there's one of them called DeepL. It translates like a full length manuscript, 60, 80,000 words in like 2 minutes.
Wow.
It's insane. It's mind boggling. But then the editor takes some time in order to make sure everything just actually does, is correct. So that's very, very important. So we're doing that, and for books, as well as to doing kind of like language translations for videos for YouTube. But now that whole business side of it's got tanked because Google is now, for YouTube, is allowing for certain creators kind of a beta program to go in and just you as a user, when you interface with YouTube, you'll be able to have a little toggle. You'll translate it and then pick your language, and it'll automatically translate the video for you. Do the voice. Yeah, do the voice as well as do the transcriptions in that language.
Wow. Now, if they could just do the movies to where I can actually enjoy watching them, because they translate
movies
them
are coming.
I know what they have now with English, right? And I'm like going, okay, that is not that person's voice. There's no way in hell that voice goes with that body type,
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying with like the dubbing. When you see it like on Netflix, you get like the English dubbed over stuff. Yes. It's the voice acting is still kind of clunky, I think. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't they don't match up some of the voice talent with they haven't mastered that yet.
Yeah. And it's too, most of them are too soft, and it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be and just the way they're talking, it's just like, okay, that would not be what somebody in English would do. And back, because what people don't realize, you have your book edited, and even though you have an editor go through your book, they still can miss stuff. And I mean, and because you might have a word that's quality when it's supposed to be quantity, and everybody reads it a certain way, and they don't catch it. And so AI will catch certain things that you might not catch. Or I've had it where it does stuff that is wrong, like numbers. It adds numbers wrong, if you can believe that. Because I use it for a lot of things that I do in my industry, and I had to do some bank statement stuff, and it was off by 20 grand. I told it to recheck your numbers. Oops, I'm sorry, I was off by 20 grand. Okay.
I know the hallucinations. The hallucinating. Yeah, that's what it's. I guess that's when it makes up stuff and it does repetitive things or just gets things wrong. I believe it's going to get worked out. I think whenever we interface with AI now, any of these large language models, we're looking at something that was developed 6 months ago, and they've already got the next one ready to roll out anyway. I mean, apparently it's doubling in its intelligence and capability every 5.9 months. So you can see where when you do this exponential kind of thing. So it's like what I remember when I first used it, like less than 2 years ago, it seemed a little clunky. And now when I interact with it, it far exceeds when I first, was using it. So I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in a year or two, go 5 years from now.
Yeah. I've been using it since November 22 when it first came out. And what I was doing back then, people were like, what, you can do that? And then I told everybody how to use it. And then now, if you use chat, you can use the GPT models and the prompts and the different things. But eventually that's going to get to a point where because now with the prompting, I don't know if you've used chat GPT much, but it used to have to create your own prompt. You'd have to have the information. Now, when you want a prompt created, it'll help you create the prompt.
Yeah. Totally. I did one today. I literally created my own GPT for something today, and it created the whole thing for me.
Yeah. It's totally different than before, where you actually, what I would do is go through and create it and then tell it to write the prompt. After I figured out how I wanted to do something. Now you can just go to it and tell it what you're trying to do, and it will help you write that prompt exactly the way you want it. Because we just created a a benefits company for vets to get your benefits, because
Mhm.
I run into it all the time with the show and everything else. And I'm tired of seeing these companies taking 5 times your increases or 30% of your first check, which is highway robbery. And we're creating a large language model to help people write this stuff for them, so they don't need these companies to do it.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm like,
Um,
I'd much rather take $97 times a million people than worry about taking, 20 grand, because some of these companies are 5 grand, 7,500 up, just from
mhm.
there, and they don't do much.
Yeah, well, that's my, when it comes to the companies I've created and the content and everything I've been creating now for years, my main mission statement, and I have it written, is that I'm about, like, when it comes to my own writing. By the way, there's importance for mission statements. I really encourage anyone that has a business or an idea to create a mission statement first. That is your vision of where you want, what you're trying to do. And you can always look toward that. I think it's very important. It creates kind of the culture in your company. Anyway, is like, when I was writing my books, it wasn't about the money, although I like making money. It's about entertaining people, bringing value to people. And just like what you're doing with, creating, what you just mentioned, that's bringing value to people. And when you bring value, money and success is downstream of that.
Right.
So I think it's intentionally, people should go out there and find things, create things. I think we're living in an incredible age, by the way, for creation.
Oh,
Create things, but have the intention of value. How are you going to help your fellow person, human being, and create widgets, apps, websites, services, widgets, whatever that is, and then worry about the money. The money will come later if it's actually something that can be used and people can find the value in it. All that other stuff is downstream. It always will show up. Always.
it's like
And
that.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, that's what I did when I created the first publishing company back in 2019. Went into it very niched, by the way. I don't try to do everything for everybody. I think it's important to kind of niche down in what you're trying to do. And so you find your audience, find that avatar you want to service, and you niche down to that and become an expert in that. Like, so the one company, we just only do nonfiction books within certain genres. We don't publish everybody's book. We won't touch romance or thrillers. We are very niche, and it's served us very, very well, and we take care of our authors in that space. So, and then the other company is this. Anyway, so these things are very important about finding your niche. Then make sure you really niche down on it, and then service those people as best as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. Most people do not find out who their perfect client is, avatar, whatever you want to call them today. And people don't know who that is, and they don't look at it. And what you're talking about, niche down as far as possible. And if you can niche where two niches intersect, you've just now hit the perfect spot.
Oh, if you can get that. Oh, yes. At that intersection, there's all kinds of stuff there.
Because that's like a veteran business owner, right? There's a niche. There's that intersection right there.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, you can then, because years ago they used to say money's in the niches, right? Whether you believe it or not. But just because you niche down doesn't mean you can't help something else that comes along the same way. I've recently, in the last year, re-niched back down to veterans because I've done so much for it. Once I was a president of my Rotary, I was so involved with getting stuff for veterans in our community that I created a fire walk for veterans, which is like a Tony Robbins fire walk.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that helps me worked for Tony Robbins for almost 20 years as his fire captain. And we have a motivational thing in the beginning, and in the night you go break boards and walk across coals. And we've helped out a few hundred people. And it's growing. And then we got our next one coming up. We pushed it, instead of May of 26, it's being pushed to the weekend before Veterans Day, because I want to get closer to Veterans Day. And so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Tony. I love Tony.
Yeah.
Tony's Unleash the Power Within that I went to with my girlfriend at the time, is now my wife, in 2002.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot earlier than that. Yeah,
2002.
I like the Awakening the Giant Within, all the old stuff that he did, because I was in San Diego when he lived up on Del Mar. And
yeah. My wife, actually, he was a client for my wife when she was in real estate down here in San Diego.
Yeah. So, and he was right up there, and then then he tried to do all the stuff for everybody and get backfired, and then he moved from there. But I enjoyed that stuff. Then they had him at a mortgage thing a couple years ago, and he's like, okay, now breathe in through your heart. And I'm a medic. So the first thing, all I could think about is you breathe in through your lungs, then you go to this, you don't breathe. You know what I mean? It's like, I couldn't get past that statement. I'm like, that's not how that works. Anyway.
Come on, Tony. But his that unleashed the power within, I think that's what it was called, UPW, changed my life. It was like, I felt like I've been given a cheat code, if that makes sense, like on how to think and mindset. And like, because I went in there thinking, like, oh, I remember Tony, those guys I see late at night and kind of the infomercials trying to sell books and stuff. And just completely, I decided, he said something that very first Friday night, I think it was a Friday night. We get there, we were up in Long Beach, and he was like, I know some of you were kind of skeptical, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I guess I just ask that you just kind of surrender to this kind of moment right now, kind of take it all in. If you don't like it, you can always leave it at the end of the weekend and go back the way you were doing stuff. I was like, that's actually practical. That's reasonable. So I just opened myself up to it, kind of played full out, and it literally shifted my life 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, being down there, it's where it all started, San Diego, that whole thing was where he was at. And you watch that, just like I interviewed somebody on Enter Edison, the guy that brought Uggs to America, right? What's Brian's last name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I remember everything when the story we were talking about, how he got him into, how they were in Costco when they weren't supposed to be in Costco, which was Price Club back then. And certainly, and the whole thing, how he lost the company and the whole 9 yards. And it's amazing when you're in certain locations and people who are there, and then that just reiterates what you did at the time and where you were at. Because you were not in California though, right?
Yeah, I was in San Diego at the time.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, so I got out of the Marine Corps, and I left, and then I ended up coming back here for a bodyguarding gig. And then I was like, oh my God, I forgot just how amazing San Diego is. It's beautiful. And then met my wife then. And then Tony was her client for some real estate stuff. And then someone in the organization reached out and said, I got some VIP tickets for you to Unleash the Power Within up in Long Beach. And then she invited me to go. Her and I weren't doing very good at the time. So it was that whole thing changed our lives, changed her life, changed mine. We took such big risks right after that, kind of massive action, as he says, and a huge shift. And so that we went to that, then we got invited back to a Date with Destiny. I think we did the Date with Destiny. I think that was in Orlando or something, some years later. And then we did another, he invited us again, because she ended up being like, he did this relationship videos program. And then she was on the relationship program based upon an interaction she had with Tony. So then he invited us back to do another Unleash the Power Within some years later. But I haven't done any of his programs in many, many years, but I still watch his stuff. I'm in San Diego.
You're in San Diego. So I'm in Modesto.
Okay.
You know where I'm at, right?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I miss San Diego. I couldn't get my wife to move back down there. Sorry.
I love it down here. I really do. I mean,
I like
perfect, but I love it.
I like North County.
Yeah, we're up in Carmel. We're up in Carmel Valley area.
Yeah. I lived all over up there. Got out of the camp. It was Oceanside. Got out of there. Lived in Carlsbad, then Encinitas. Then when I left, I left Rancho Santa Fe, and then came back up here. Yeah. So
okay, I'm familiar with Rancho Santa Fe, and my wife's from Rancho Santa Fe. She's a native San Diegan.
The problem is I was there when I was too young.
When
I was 27 when I lived there. The problem at that time is all old people. What I mean by that is they would drive real slow and it'd take forever to get anywhere. And it's like, come on, we got, the rest of us have things to do. And then it just changed. They built up so much over there, So
yeah, every time there's this one great restaurant in the Covenant called Nick and G's. It's like, and then there's another place called Mille Fleur. You ever been to Mille Fleur?
Mm-mm.
That's right inside the Covenant in Rancho Santa Fe. It's like the only club, kind of bar, kind of has a piano. It's like a piano bar. But the Covenant, it's like a nice little downtown, but it's just filled with real estate offices. That's all it is. There's like nothing going on at night. Like, you guys like, this is really quaint. It's really nice. And there's nothing but real estate offices. But
How Del Mar was.
yes. And, well, Del Mar's kind of built up a little bit now, right around the 15th Street, you know, you right across from LeBare's, that hotel. And they really developed that one place. A few bars in there now and restaurants and things like that.
Yeah. Now I just get the heat.
You do get the heat. You're in Central Valley. Oh my God.
22 days a year. We're a little hot. Other than that, we're fine. Yeah. But you know, that again, what are you going to do? All right. So you've been down there for a while. So you got into writing. How did you get into writing?
Well, the very first book I wrote was a children's illustrated book. And kind of was, I guess I would say it's like I was the one parent who predominantly read to the kids at night. Not that my wife wouldn't, but the kids just love it. I just jump into bed and grab a children's illustrated book and read, and always had like a stack of books on the nightstand, and we'd burn through those. And then I'd tell them stories. And we had this one story they loved, and about this dog named Kiki and Kiki's adventures. And I always included the girls, and they were doing all this stuff. So after one night of reading to the girls and putting them in bed, I mentioned to my wife, I said, what would you think if I did a children's book? It's like, sure. I was thinking, how hard can this be? Like 600 words, 800 words are not very long. I mean, they're not, but it was the illustrations. I found these great illustrators down in Buenos Aires and Argentina. They did the illustrations for relatively inexpensively compared to get in the States. And I did this children's book. And so,
what year was this?
Oh God, that was 2011. The book's called Doggyville.
No,
and you can find it on Amazon.
Because since then and versus now, how the difference is. So that's what I was just wanting to know when you did that.
Oh yeah, that was done. There's no AI, none of that stuff going on then. And I know that the ladies who did the illustrations, they were using like a computer generated software to do it. But this is like, again, it was 2011 is when I did that book. But it was that, like, having the idea and then putting in the kind of using discipline and consistency, kind of what just that labor, compounded labor is what I call it. You got compounded interest and compounded labor. You just do more labor on top of labor. And next thing you know, you've got something at the end. And I had this book in my hand. First thing that had come from a creative standpoint that I had been able to accomplish. I was like actually pretty impressed with it. And I hustled to kind of get all my money back. I invested in it. And I was like, then that kind of sparked in me. It's like, well, what if I wrote a novel? And I just set about to doing it. Something I do a lot is if I've got an idea for something, I look for other people that have done it before me and I look at what they've done. Like how can I model them in a certain way, like pull certain traits from them. So I was looking up, how other authors, how they write, what is their schedule like? What are their, essentially, how do they do it? And I remember Stephanie Meyer stuck out to me. She's the author of the Twilight series, the vampire things. Now, what's funny is I never read Stephanie's books, but I loved her work ethic and how she kind of structured writing the first novel. I literally modeled what she did. So when everyone was at bed at night, I would go to work, and I made writing like my second job, and I treated it that way. And the reason I teach, and when I coach now, I tell everyone to do exactly that. If you treat something like a hobby, you're never going to put that kind of effort toward it. But if it's like a job, then you give it the respect it needs. That means you'll show up for it because you have to, and you put in the time. And so that's what I did. And every night I was out there hammering. Eventually got that novel done. That book was called The End. My very first novel. I got an agent for it. I fired the agent. And then eventually I self-published it. And then 10 days after self-publishing it, the book took off. This went viral.
Wow.
And was it about a month after it's selling? Like I knew I had an opportunity here that I needed to get a sequel out. And I had a spreadsheet and I was just kind of tracking my sales. And I knew I had to quit my job. And my wife would not like that. So I literally presented her with data. I said, listen, this is what we made last year. And this is what I just made this last month. And what I made in that first month selling my book was more than I made in an entire year. And she was like, and I told her, I said, I need to quit. I said, I can't wait 18 months to get a sequel out. I just saw this door of opportunity right there and I needed to jump through it. And so I quit. She goes, go ahead. And I quit my job at the time and then went to writing the sequel, got the sequel done in about 2 months. And then at the time, the book was selling so well that I was getting calls from all these publishers. And then the big one came in. Penguin Random House called me out of nowhere. Said they wanted not just that book, but 3 more. So 4 books in total it was part of a large package. And I signed off on it. That was 2013. The summer of 2013 is when I signed that big deal with them. And then my life changed.
How did it change?
Well, I was just a full-time novelist, and that's just what I did. I had this cool life like Ernest Hemingway, drinking a lot and writing all the time. So
Yeah,
I don't drink anymore, though, by the way. What's that?
The drinking a lot is what you said.
Yeah. I mean, I like Ernest is one of my influences. I read him a lot during the Marine Corps and just always loved his books, you know. I've always kind of respected his life up until he became kind of a drunkard and eventually committed suicide and all the sad things about his life. But definitely an inspiration. And he was someone who changed American literature, and his books are terrific. And he was a guy who had actually done a lot, and you could feel that in his words in the books. So I love that about him. But it changed my life, and that is I was making really, really good money, and I just went from like, it's very hard to like make any money writing, by the way. So I was able to, my very first book, I knocked it out of the park, and I just seized on it like I did and turned it into a business right away. And I don't think a lot of creatives do that. I think they look at themselves always as a starving artist. And I don't understand that concept. I was like, that's great. You're going to create this beautiful art, whatever that is, but you're not going to, I don't think you respect it enough if you then just allow it to not get in the hands of as many people as possible. I'm not trying to say by selling out, but I always ask questions. People like, don't you want as many people as possible reading your book or seeing your art or doing whatever, watching your movie, whatever that is? And of course, a lot of them say, of course. And I was like, well, then you should be out. You should treat it like a business and find out how to maximize marketing and promotion so you can get in front of as many people as possible. And so it's kind of an education for some of these people, but I treated it like that right from the beginning. And I was able to see really, really great success. And, you know, I'm 40 books in myself, and now I've got, 3 other companies, and they're all adjacent. So there's like me at the core of everything, me being a novelist, and then all the companies I have are adjacent to that. So they're in the writing or creative space, somehow supporting writing and authorship and publishing, and they're all kind of in that same space.
All this stuff you used to go to somebody else for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with what I'm doing with the veteran stuff I'm doing. It's all, everything I'm creating is connected to that somehow. But it doesn't happen overnight. So,
yeah. And a lot of those things can't happen overnight. You need, I was telling my wife and I were just talking recently about, how confidence is built, and confidence is built by action. So I have the confidence now to jump into spaces that I may not be somewhat familiar with, but yet they're kind of adjacent, kind of in my lane a little bit, but I'll jump into them anyway, because I just have the confidence of all the years now of writing and being successful in that. And that's why I jumped into publishing, because I had self-published my own stuff. So I know how to produce a book and know how to market it. And so there's some things I didn't quite understand, but I just kind of learn along the way, and it chalk up anything that fails as just a learning experience. I think that's important too for people that are out there working and in business is, reframe something that doesn't work. You're only a failure if you choose for it to be a failure. It's just a learning opportunity.
Do you think it's easier for you to self-publish because you were once done through a large publishing company?
I think we live in a very interesting time for self-publishing. In fact, I think it's better now to self-publish. Well, I'll take that back. I think it's easier to self-publish than when I first got into it, but it's more competitive. Right. So that can make it harder.
Because everybody's
harder to be seen. What's that?
Everybody's writing a book.
Everyone's writing. And sometimes I will look at my own career, and I got into it. I got into a specific genre too that isn't the largest genre. Post-apocalyptic fiction isn't. It's like a subgenre of horror, which I didn't even know at the time, but that's what it is. And I just happened to jump into the game and clearly wrote a decent enough book that it resonated with a lot of people. But the post-apocalyptic space at the time wasn't overly populated. And now it's just riddled with stuff. Tons of people, lots of competition going on. But I think writing and publishing is easier because you have access to a lot of different tools that I didn't necessarily have. But then the marketing side of it is harder because of the competition. And AI is just going to destroy everything.
You're talking about the book writing?
Oh, yeah. It's unless you're already established, it's just gonna almost be impossible to get seen. That's I use AI a lot, not for my own writing, but I use it for my companies. Use it heavily. And I think I'm a big believer in AI. I think there's things I may not like about it, and I think there's going to be consequences societal wise. But we're not going to stop it. And there's reasons for that. I mean, there's too much money there, and we're at a war with China over it. That's where we're in. I mean, I think people need to. I think a lot of people that try to say we need to stop the development of it don't understand the real global picture of what's at play here. It's like an arms race right now. You've got two superpowers vying to be the leader of AI. You've got China and then us, and there's not a chance in hell that we're just going to let China just take off with it and be the leader of AI. It's not going to happen. So all the people can complain about some of these issues. We're going to end up, and they're coming. There's going to be a lot of disruption. But I think a lot of people realize that the more existential threat is China being the leader of AI.
Yeah, I think so too. And people don't realize it's been around since the 50s. It's just finally got to where it's forward facing for us to deal with it.
That's a good point. And I just encourage people to reframe what it is. I was having a debate today with some writers talking and complaining about it. And I was like, well, they have these editing large language models, which I just created my own one today, and to help copy edit. And I would go, wait a minute, hold on. You're looking at AI. It's not cheating. I said, you're an editor. What are you? You're just a large language model that's encapsulated in a meat bag. That's all you are. So if I go to a chat that I've created this GPT to do line editing or copy editing, how is that any different than, say, going to you as an individual? Because really our brains, if you look at the development of AI, there's one, I can't remember the gentleman's name now. I think Google bought his IP. It's essentially like his form of the AI is like it has the same processes as our brain, of a human brain. So that's how it's able to learn. And a lot of people just have this misunderstanding that AI is simply just copying and pasting stuff, that the AI has it stored somewhere and you ask it to do something, it copies and then pastes it for you. That's not what it's doing. It's actually reasoning in its own way of how it reasons. And it's using this library of it's learned all these things, it's read all these things, and it's using that information just like our brain does to then, when you give it a command or you give it a request or prompt, it then spits that out by looking at everything. This is exactly how the human brain works. So I encourage people to look at, when you're interfacing with a chat or a Claude or Grok or whatever, they're really just kind of you're dealing with an intelligence. It's an entity in some way. I don't think it's sentient yet, but that's what it is. It's not plagiarizing things like people say that it is. Maybe some here and there it might, but it's not just copying whole sections of people's novels and then populating it into yours if you're asking it to help you write something. It's just not doing that.
It's like a ghostwriter.
Yeah, wait, there you go. I mean, so there's so many human jobs you can equate it to. Right. So how is that? Is that cheating then? If you have a ghostwriter, is it cheating when you have an editor? Is it cheating when you get a graphic design person? I don't know.
I think the problem is people think ghostwriting means the person writes the book for you. That's not what ghostwriting means. Ghostwriting is somebody there's people who are good at writing. There's people who are good at talking. They're usually not the same person.
Yeah.
And so for like myself, I don't want to say I hate to read. I'd much rather watch it or listen to it. But for writing, I hate writing. It's not my thing, but I can talk. I can talk like nobody's business. That's why I do 13 different shows a week.
You do? Oh my God, that's impressive.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, I do a lot. That's how you get good at something. You act like it's a job. And so everybody kept saying, why are you going live so often? so I could get good at it. Because I got on radio in 2018, a local talk radio show, Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on, and that took off. We have 51 to 71,000 listeners, locally here on AM radio, and that we do that. And from that show, I do a daily at 8:30 Monday through Friday. That's 5 days, 5 shows a week just for that. Plus, then I do 2 recordings of this show a week, plus my Inner Edison 2 shows, plus another podcast 2 shows. So so I'm pretty busy with these things.
I love that. That's good. You're leaning into something you have talent for. That's great.
Yeah. I tell people stories across multiple mediums.
Well, but I mean, that's advice I give writers all the time. And the main thing I tell a new author is just be a storyteller. As human beings, that's all we do. We're in a constant state of either telling stories or consuming stories. You look at our daily life, from even when we're sleeping, where our brains are like retelling stories in our brains. They're called dreams or nightmares. Then we wake up and you're instantly in some state of either consuming a story, whether you're doom scrolling on social media to talking to your spouse or talking to your friends, or we're always like we're built, and that's how we are, storytelling 124 hours a day.
Yep. I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, that is what we do. That's all we've been doing this whole time we've been talking. We're storytelling.
And people ask why I do this, and I tell people, well, it's so I don't get in. What used to get me in trouble at dinner parties with my wife, she'd grab my leg to tell me to shut up because I would ask questions. I don't have that now. I can ask any of those questions.
What kind of questions were you asking?
No, I want to know why. I want to know why people voted a certain way, why they think a certain way. Why I ask why questions. I want to know. I'm curious. I want to understand. I don't care why you did it. I just want to understand why you did it.
I appreciate that. I feel in the same way. Like, I'm intellectually curious.
Yeah.
Why people do the things that they do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from judgment. I'm actually curious. If it's different than they think differently, I mean, like I do, I want to know the why as well.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you look at, I talk to so many different people. I believe we're all in the middle. There's just those little fringes on the outside that are so loud. They're like that lady in the bar who might be a little overweight, but it's so loud that you want to, it's so loud. She's trying to get all the attention, and you're like, okay, let's leave the bar. Let's leave the restaurant because she's so loud. That's those fringes on the right and the left. That's what you hear. And so again, those people tell us that there's so many of them when there are not so many of them. Us, and we, as being in the military, we know that we deal with everybody. We're brutal to each other. We don't care what color your skin is. We're brutal. We'll pick on you no matter who you are, and we'll say things about you that we shouldn't say, but we have a good time about because that's who we are. And yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think that I was talking to someone recently about that. Like, I look at my own views, and they're kind of on a spectrum, really. I don't like to pigeonhole myself, because then I have to compromise my principles in order to say if I pick a team, I'm going to be team politics, and I pick a team. Well, there's going to be some things that team does I may not like now, but if I want to stay on the team, I got to be all in on that, whatever that is, which might compromise my value system. And so I think it's really good to be independent and be free thinking. It allows you so much latitude. And then, being that I'm that way, my views are very much on a spectrum. I can have something here that might be center left a little bit, or center right, or far right, or like I don't really have anything that's really far left. That's definitely like foreign territory.
Yeah.
But it's definitely just more of a spectrum, from like a little bit left to center and kind of all the way over there. This depends on what the topic is. I can be empathetic and see people's viewpoints. So I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. But yeah, I don't like getting hardened in political camp. I think it's more important to have values, and you stick to values with conviction, versus play on a team of politics, because any political team can be corrupted.
Yeah. And
you don't want to be on there when they do that.
I wish they'd get rid of teams, and then you just voted for people, and there was no teams.
Well, that's how it was first envisioned, right? When you had, I think Washington was the only one that wasn't part of a political, and then it didn't take us long as human beings to go into like little tribes, like right away. You had Adams versus Jefferson, and then it was like instantly you had a split, like instantly. And 2 parties were created right after Washington. Like, it didn't take us long at all.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's human nature. I don't know if we'll ever not have be factions. I think it's just what I think people feel comfortable being a part of a group.
oh, I see that they want to be around people that are like them, and I get that. But there's also you got to, like you just said, people conform to certain people just because they're part of that party, whether they really agree with it or not. You know.
Yeah. You know, you said something too that I've mentioned a lot, and how the military people sometimes can say disparaging things about the military. One thing it is not to say that you can't run into the
Oh
few
yeah.
here and there, but it's very like people from all races, all walks of life, all in one barracks. We're all together, and we all take care of each other. It's quite fascinating. You get these eclectic group of people together with one kind of common purpose. It's incredible. I think the military is such a valuable institution for the country in a multitude of ways, not just from its main, main job of defending the nation, but just how it can teach young men and women so many valuable tools and jobs, and but also just life in general. I mean, the young men that I've served with, again, all kinds of walks of life. I really got something I wasn't exposed to a lot. Like one guy I was really close with in my squad during the Gulf War. Was this black guy from South Carolina, and I'm just this white kid, and just really we would have some just really great conversations. And he was really telling me about a lot of the racism he experienced growing up in the Deep South, things I had no idea about. But I was just curious, kind of like you're a curious person, just asked him. So it was just, and he never looked at me as some white guy. I never looked at them that way. But at the same time, I was able to get this kind of perspective because he was my brother.
Right.
I was able to hear what he had to say. And I think you can get a lot of that in the military because we have that unifying thing we're all behind, and that is that mission that we have to accomplish. And so I think the military is a great institution, a wonderful institution for many different many different things.
Yeah, we have a boot camp in. We just need a boot camp out. So to help vets get out and be able to transition better,
Yeah,
because
the transition's not very good. It's
there's
not. It's
there's programs in place right now, but they're still not very good. And I'm actually in the process of creating the boot camp out right now because I had this vision after my last fire walk, and and I came back, I just put it all down. I used ChatGPT to help me, and I sent it to my VAs, and they created it. And so now it's just putting it all together, and basically it's just to help everything that we needed is going to be there. Everything we've lost when we get out is there for you. The biggest thing is to help you find the job, help you find different things, help you find, there's a company here close to me called Learn It. They teach everybody how to do stuff on software for the computers and everything else. They're like, I interviewed them on one of my other podcasts. They're like, hey, you can have all of our stuff for your vets for free. Yeah.
what do you think is the main issue that plagues veterans in transition?
There's
What do you
so
think is going on?
well, dude, if I pulled it up, there's 6 different things that we lose when we get out. Camaraderie, knowing each other, right? And the people we've known, and that connection. It's easier to stay connected now than it was before. When we got out, we didn't have I didn't have Facebook like people have now, and other places to stay connected. Because a good friend of mine who's helping me on my other thing that I'm doing, helping the Brave, the benefits company, he knows every single one of his infantry people. They're still connected. There's 80 of them, 88 of them, and they still talk all the time,
That's
which
great.
we didn't have that. I didn't have that when I was in, and when I got out. I ran away from the military when I got out. And also, when I got in down to San Diego, they had signs on their lawn that says, keep your sailor and dog off my lawn." Yeah, I totally forgot about that till I interviewed a guy, and he was telling me. I was like, "Oh, I totally forgot about that." Yeah, and but that's just that's just how we were so big, especially in San Diego. We took over so much, people just now it's not as much. We're there, but we're not as big and we don't need to be as big. We have so many different things we can do now. But how to find a job. Our job skills don't transfer. They
No.
do, but they don't transfer to where you can explain to an employer what you've just done, right? An engineer, even though it's the same engineer, does not transfer unless you go to one of those large companies that are a military contractor who are used to those people. Well, they don't want to go to those places. They want to go somewhere else. And like I said, I have all the different 6 categories. What happened is one of the guys that's part of the Firewalk, he went to UOP, that's the University of Pacific up here in Stockton, and he went out and he did this whole thing on vets, and he did a whole and found out all this information that we were losing. He interviewed all these different vets and what we lost, and basically it took him like almost 2 years to do, 18 months, and it came up with the 6 different things. I went to ChatGPT and came up with the 6 different things in less than 5 seconds, and they were the same stuff. So
Yeah,
that's how I knew I was on the right path with what I was doing when I talked to him about what he went and he talked to everybody about. But I've been interviewing people for the last 4 years through this, so I know exactly what we lose.
do you think some of it's just loss of purpose?
Yes, that's the biggest one, loss of
Yeah.
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I just look back at my 6 years in and all the things that you've done, all the places you travel around the world, 3 deployments. I went all over the place. And there's also the level of responsibility that's given. That's something I think a lot of people overlook. And that's why I think a lot of young people can be given tremendous amounts of responsibility. We just need to trust them. Because you look at the military here, you've got very young people that are given incredible amounts of responsibility. It's almost like in a life and death kind of situation many times. And these would be 20, 21, 22-year-old people making very important decisions, handling equipment that's worth millions upon millions of dollars, making decisions that could cost someone's life, but yet they can handle it and they can do it. Then they get out and they're treated like they're a child again. They get back somewhere and like, oh, you're only 22, you're a kid. It's like, bro, I just was leading combat patrols somewhere. Like, what are you talking about? I can handle this. And I think I think a lot of employers don't understand how that translates. I think it's about educating them. But there's that loss of purpose. You're doing things on a kind of this grand historical scale. And then you get back and you're somewhere else. It's just not the same.
Yeah. So if you guys don't need to go away, but here, I'm going to show you. I'm going to present the screen what I created just so you can see it, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see here, window. All right, so can you see it okay?
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
All right, so and then when you go down, this is the structure, mission, identity, support system, physical toughness, all those things. So it puts you on a whole track on to get all that back. And then
that's 100% right there. That is 100%, right? What you listed
back up here, those things.
Yeah. The structure, the mission, camaraderie, identity, right?
Yep. And then what we do is we have so this is all just still being built out. And if anybody wants to be part of it, just let me know. Because I can't do it myself. We have a whole curriculum, 6 thing to do, get you back. I think one of the biggest things is, the guy who I heard this from originally, he said, it's like taking a Bradley, painting it like a school bus and telling it it's a school bus, but then it goes out there and rips up the streets because it's not a school bus. It's a tool of war. We are a tool of war, and we need to come back and learn how to get back to the thing. And then we'll have certifications and special, different things to get you through your career, financial warfare, the whole thing. So sorry, my internet's a little slow right now. Benefits, the whole 9 yards. So the biggest other thing that I like more than anything, because like most of us, I'm finding about 50% of us go and start a company.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the whole thing, get them there sooner. So that's kind of what I've created. I just split it out. There's more to it. I can send you the link if you want to look at it. It's not live yet. I'm still got to do a bunch of different courses, but I mean, there's stuff where I have people who are going to do fitness classes and stuff online for free and let people get back to in exercise and go to local stuff, get with more people. There's just so much, and people want to get involved. And we need something like this, because I started helping the Brave podcast. I wanted to have one place for everybody to go to find out everything they needed to find out. Well, it's really hard to do that. Like there's so many silos out there between different nonprofits that don't want to work together because they overlap just this much, and
Hmm.
it's horrible. Someone said there's 43,000 nonprofits for veterans.
I wonder how many of those are actually legit.
Oh, that's the other issue. Yes,
Hmm.
that's the problem right there. We don't need 43,000 nonprofits for us veterans. There's 18 million of us. And, if you figure how many have benefits, how many need to have benefits, I think our biggest thing that we need is the easier way for vets to get their benefits.
Uh,
Because,
do you use the VA system?
yeah, I
Yeah, I
just
do too.
started. I just started. I had no idea I had access to everything I had access to. And it all became an interview to Ranger on here about he does benefits for people. And he started getting my package because I got denied when I got out. I went back again. But back then, wait, you're looking at me what? I got denied?
I'm just surprised how you got denied.
They gave me only 10%. Well, because I went through DAV, they didn't do it right.
Okay.
And I'm not knocking that company that did it
Huh.
originally. They just
Is that
didn't do.
disabled
Yeah,
American veterans? Is that what it is?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You got to remember, I got out in the 90s, early 90s. So, and then they wanted to go back, get certain things looked at, and then somebody else was going to help me through the VA in the late 90s, and nothing happened. And then it's totally different in the last 8 years how to get your stuff done. It's so much easier. It was until they just got rid of 80,000 different people. So at the VA. Yeah.
Yeah. My experience, I didn't use the VA until 6 years ago. I just didn't use it. I don't know why. I mean, I use it now exclusively, and I think it's amazing. The VA hospital here in San Diego in La Jolla is incredible facility. I understand some hospitals. I think everything's localized in some regards. How some
Yes.
hospitals and clinics are managed. So vets can have some really bad experiences there. But my experience down in La Jolla has been great. Like I've
La
been there a
Jolla.
year. Did the blood work. I just got some glasses. I never knew I could go get like the optometry department, get glasses. I just got some glasses done for them. But I don't have like a rating yet, but they actually thought I was talking to the optometrist. This has just happened. And like, like she was asking about my hearing. I'm like, yeah, I've got a ringing in my ears like all the time. Like, have you got that checked out? I'm like, nope. Like you
Yes.
probably have, what did you do? And she looked and goes, oh, you're in the infantry. So like you kind of blew up a lot of stuff. And that's probably why you have ringing in your ears.
Kind of
So
nice.
I just had like, it was a third party they sent me to do a hearing test. So,
Yeah, so so you're starting your benefits. That's what that is. And then what you can, so I went, nobody needs to hear about this. Mike, well, Jeff, let's talk about this afterwards.
okay.
But I'm just saying everybody should go back, get their benefits, even especially now, because I have bone on my left knee. I've been bitching about my left knee since I got out. And I went to the VA, went through all the stuff, and they took x-rays because I've been going to Kaiser for the last 20 years because my wife works for Kaiser. And then I got all that information over to the VA and they took x-rays. They're like, oh, you got shoulder issues, you got neck issues, you got back issues. I picked up patients. I worked as an EMT. There's so much stuff I did, saw everything that I did as a corpsman that people don't understand what we do. And that has affected me, but I never went back. I just dealt with it.
That's what we do.
Yeah. And
When,
that's
when
why
I
it's like,
when I get the hearing thing, she goes, "How long you been experiencing this?" I'm like, "Oh, a long time." She goes, "Why didn't you?" I said, "I was just dealing with it. I created like this new baseline. Like I really can't hear that well on my right ear. Lots of ringing all the time." I said, "It's just kind of a new baseline. It's just like this. What it is. I go to sleep and I wake up and this what it is." My wife's always like, "You should go get your hearing checked." I'm like, "Well, maybe I'm not conveniently not hearing you right now."
that's right. Yeah,
Um,
they always say that's what wives say. I always tell their husband, but it's true. I mean, even corpsmen don't normally have hearing issues, but I was at Camp Pendleton and we'd run out to where they do your guys' training and we'd be out there listening to all that nice noise. And so you'd been around in the hospital. There were certain places we'd be at and so you never know. You can't just say just because you're a corpsman, you didn't have these issues. And
Well, of course, a corpsman, and specifically the corpsmen that are with line units and out there deployed with the Marines, specifically in the field, you're actually doing a lot of the stuff we're doing. Like I know during the interview, because there was an interview process before the hearing test. I was like, So when you were in and you were doing live fire, were you wearing hearing protection? I'm like, not all the times. He goes, what times were you? I said, during combat. Like, you didn't wear hearing protection? Like, no, we did wear hearing protection. Like, we're just firing missiles. I'm just saying, like, without hearing protection, it's just like, we didn't like, did they require it? Like,
It was a different time. It's not like it is now.
But even then, it's like you're going to find yourself in situations if you're deployed somewhere that you're just not going to pop into hearing protection because anyway. So it's again, I just had when I went back and I filed to get that, and it's been really easy. I mean, I've had nothing. The 6 years I've had, I even had spinal surgery when I was there, and did a great job. Did a great job. Orthopedic spine at La Jolla is great.
Did you? What was the spine? What was that caused from?
Well, I had always had back issues, and one day I just picked up a stupid propane tank, and I was a disc rupture. I ruptured a disc
when you were in.
I had some issues, but I don't remember think of anything was in my
Yeah, but you carried here. Let's talk afterwards. I don't want this.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I really had a good time with you today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the
opportunity. How do people find you?
Best place to find me is my website at gmichaelhopf.com. There's a contact page there. You can email me. I reply to all my emails. And if you're looking for any of my books, you can find them on amazon.com.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed.